Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Craig?
Hey, I saw they moved to a different night. That's just part of the COVID world. Running past Sunday Cougs. We thought they might not play in the summertime, so having any game suits me just fine. I can get down with Sunday Cougs.
Yeah, me too. Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday. I don't know.
NFL Wednesday. They do Wednesday games.
I mean, we got football games all. We don't even need the Maction to get football games on all days of the week at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My fantasy football leagues are all like messed up because now there's a game on Wednesday.
When do you have to lock in your roster?
Well, I've got in one league Deontay Johnson from the Steelers going, and game's on Wednesday now if it actually happens. But I don't know. Maybe I should have started somebody else. Probably would have been better off starting Mike Evans.
Did you know what that song was, by the way?
I didn't. Why don't you enlighten me?
It's Sunday Girl by Blondie. It's a kicking song. Highly recommend it. It's sexy.
Yeah.
I think it's from the late 70s or early. I don't know. I'm not sure when it was.
Late 70s, early 80s would be her wheelhouse there.
Oh no, maybe no. Let's see, Blondie, Sunday Girl. When did it come out? This is 1978. There
you go. 1 year after I was born.
Ah, yes. It's younger. The song is younger than you, Jeff.
Younger than me, which is not hard to do for most things. At this point,
I mean, if you're looking at the entire like universe, then it's pretty. You are just a blip, man.
Well, I mean,
it's
yes, in the grand scheme of the universe.
Jeff-centric view of the universe. Oh, it's not that hard to be younger than me.
Well, I would say of things that are relevant today, I'm about in like the middle of that. It's like a 50-50 older or younger situation, right? For the most part.
You don't think like the sun is very relevant today? Do you not think like the ground? You see Mount Rainier probably pretty frequently. Is that not relevant?
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Jeff.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll tell you what's definitely younger than me.
Every player on the WSU football team?
Yes. And they're going to play a game this week, maybe.
Yeah. And is Nick Rolovich too? How old is Nick Rolovich?
Nick Rolovich, I think we're about the same age. I don't know. I'm going to have to look
1979.
Oh, he's younger than me.
He's younger than Blondie Sunday Girl.
There we go. Same age as my brother. Same age as my wife.
What have you been doing with your life, Jeff? Should be coaching the WSU football team at this point.
Hey, listen. There are many, 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 many times that I ask myself that question. What have I been doing with my life? Oh my gosh, look at this. The first time I think I thought that was when Brad Stevens was going to Final Fours and national championship games with Butler. And I was like, oh my God, like, look at this fucking guy. Like, okay, I've been teaching for a few years. Yay.
What about Drew Cannon?
That was another one. Yeah, that was another one.
Brad Stevens' assistant, who was then hired as onto the Celtics when he was like 22.
Yeah,
he was.
Yeah, and we shared a book with that man.
We did. Well, he was barely a man when he wrote that book.
That'll be our claim to fame, like forever. All the names that were in that, we've talked about this before, but all the names in that basketball prospectus book, people like Ken Pomeroy, we talked about that. And,
pretty good.
Cannon and John Gassaway and
a lot of good ones.
A lot of good ones.
But anyway. Football is playing on Sunday night. It's going to be a packed Cougar Sports Day. You got a basketball game at 2 and a football game now at 4:30 after it was previously at 6. So,
and a Seahawks game too, if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's a Seahawks game around then too. So you got to have some screens going. Yeah, at this rate, tomorrow the game will be at 3. By Wednesday it'll be at 1:30. But maybe we'll make it back to Friday by the time Friday rolls around. I don't know. They've now changed it twice within a 24-hour span. But
yeah,
hey,
who knows?
It's all up to the TVs at this point, as we've seen in the NFL too. The Ravens game got pushed to Wednesday so NBC could show a tree lighting, the Rockefeller Center tree lighting ceremony.
So fantastic! We got to show tree lighting where nobody's going to be, or I don't know, maybe people are going to be there, socially distanced and masked up. I don't know.
It's pretty good.
So yeah.
But yeah, 4:30. I don't know. It's it doesn't make a ton of difference to me. I guess
makes no difference to me at all.
I guess
in fact, I'd prefer that.
I'll have more to do, to pass the time on Sunday. Saturday, I can just have a nice, relaxing Saturday watching college football, whatever.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, you watch your NFL and then you watch your Cougar football and Cougar basketball.
I mean, this is all assuming that the game is actually. That the game actually happens.
Yeah, the last time we talked about a football game, it didn't happen.
That was our last podcast.
And that was we recorded that less than 48 hours before the game was supposed to be played.
I know.
So
we thought the worst thing about that was that we were going to get the starting quarterback wrong.
And we did.
Hey, technically we did not, because there was no game and there was no other starting quarterback. So for all we know, Nick Rolovich could have been pulling the old okey doke.
Yeah.
And, it actually would have been Cam and Cooper.
Yeah.
We don't know. We just
Sorry, Stanford. You thought it was going to be this quarterback you have no tape of. Now it's this other quarterback you have no tape of, and he's left-handed. Your defense is screwed.
No, it's like the scene from Princess Bride. I have something to tell you. I'm not actually left-handed, except I am actually left-handed in this case. I don't know. Throwing the. I'm just imagining a quarterback taking the football and throwing it over to his other hand and being like, "Ha ha!
It was Cooper the whole time."
I am not actually left-handed, or I am not actually right-handed. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows what would have happened? We don't know, because the game got canceled, and then another game got canceled, and. Which I think, I don't know. I'm very okay with the fact that game got canceled. I don't know about you.
It would have been perfect if Utah could hold on to a fucking 21-point lead.
Good Lord. Utah.
I was this is the best Apple Cup weekend we're going to have in a while. This is fantastic.
You can never count on Utah for anything, actually. They just fuck it all up. That's all I'm saying. When I think about my feelings about the state of Utah, I can never really shake, my feelings that I had for the Utah Jazz, back in the 90s, when the Sonics and the Jazz were going head to head, and Karl Malone and, all the fans in Key Arena, counting down from 10 or
counting up
or
to
up
15.
or up. They were counting up. That's right. Counting up when Karl Malone was there taking his free throws, and I can never push those things too far from my brain when I'm thinking about the state of Utah. And so, it went against everything that I had to fully embrace the Utes in that game. And I thought I thought that was trending in the right direction. And then suddenly it wasn't. I don't know quite how that happened. I missed the first 5 minutes of the second half, which apparently I missed a lot in the first 5 minutes of the second half.
Yeah, that's mostly when I started watching it. I was doing something else. I can't remember what I was doing before the game. The first half, I was basically just following, on Twitter and following, the score. And I was like, oh, that looks fun. And, I guess it's my fault. I started watching that first drive, and UW took it right down the field, and then it all went to crap. So, no, thanks for nothing, Utah. You were going to be honorary Cougs forever if you won that game.
For at least 5 minutes.
Instead, you lost in the most obnoxious fashion. So, congratulations.
Puking up a 3-touchdown lead, including a final last-minute drive for the win.
90-yard drive.
Yeah, letting freaking Dylan Morris like just slice you up all the way down the field. Like absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal. But hey, better them than us. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
yeah,
like
better them than us.
You know, as I'm thinking about whether I wanted to play that game, you know, I'm okay. I'm all right with. I
think I'd take
that game didn't get played.
I think I'd take the games over in the first quarter Apple Cups that we've gotten used to versus 21-0 at half and blowing it. That would be miserable.
Can you imagine? I mean, we take.
I mean, I can imagine blowing a game like that. It's happened before.
But, yes, but not to Washington. You know, not recently.
2003.
No, I'm just saying not recently. Like that's
sorry.
Like I've been there. I mean, obviously we've been there, but it's like I don't know. There's a special kind of pain in, you know, being up by 3 touchdowns and then figuring out a way to screw it up. And
yeah, I remember.
Certainly don't want to live through being taunted about that for a year,
forever. But yeah, forever. I don't know. Who knows? We could still end up playing UW. There's that crossover game, but now they're in line to go to the Pac-12 championship at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they'd still have to beat Oregon. I know that, you know, Oregon losing to Oregon State, like, I don't know. I guess made it a little more possible that Washington gets there. But
I mean, it made it a little more possible.
Those two teams still have to play each other, and one of them's going to have the tiebreakers. So
yeah,
it really doesn't matter that much unless Oregon loses again, which I guess is possible. But
yeah, in Oregon, I mean, I think also that Oregon game showed the Oregon State game showed that Oregon really isn't that good.
Yeah.
But of course they played, you know, UW played them roughly the same. So they just got lucky to escape with a win. Oregon State, if not for,
yeah, I mean, can we just talk about how the fact that we beat Oregon State by 10 points and that's looking like a good win right now. Can we just say that?
Like a damn good win. Cause because UW basically got lucky that 2 different 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 conversions that were not called somehow, like for Oregon State. Otherwise, they would have taken that lead and probably won that game in the 4th quarter. That if that happens, Oregon State's sitting 3-1,
right,
with their only loss to WSU.
To us. Yeah,
and really, like WSU's been the team that played them the best. And I know it was the first game, but still, they held down Jamar Jefferson better than what some of these other teams have done, and. You know, I mean, that Oregon game is a disappointing one now because, like, you see what Oregon's done, and you're like, why, you know, maybe we did miss an opportunity there. Maybe Oregon wasn't as good as we thought, you know. So I don't know. So I'm hoping we get to play some football again. WSU gets to play some football again, so we can talk about something other than a game that was 3 weeks ago. But
yeah, I mean, hopefully by the time Thursday night rolls around and we record our USC preview, there's still a game to talk about.
Yeah,
so then maybe
that would be great.
We can talk about football then. But
I want to dig into this air raid offense. You know.
Yeah. Apparently, Jaden Delores good to go.
Yeah.
Which is good, and apparently, I don't know. Nick Rolovich is being appropriately cagey about Max Borghi. My impression is that that's still maybe a long shot.
Mm-hmm.
Just given the forthrightness about maybe Delora and that I don't know. I'm not sure like I don't know who the sources are that people are getting their information of with the WSU football team these days, but whoever that is or whoever's those are definitely more forthcoming with information than when Mike Leach was the coach.
Yeah.
I mean, we have learned things in the last, couple months that we certainly, I don't know, man, never would have heard come out of the program when Leach was the coach. So the fact that we haven't heard, Borghi's in line to play, maybe tells me a little bit that maybe it's still a little bit of a long shot, but good for Rolovich kind of holding it out there, being like, hey, he can play. I mean, maybe you never know. So yeah, I that would be exciting. That would be very exciting. Play against USC, and I don't know. Cougs are getting like 2 touchdowns at this point, which is seems kind of bananas to me.
Yeah, USC hasn't really blown anyone
USC's
out.
Not that good.
Yeah, and I don't know that. I guess maybe people think WSU lost to Oregon by 2 touchdowns. So
I guess, but we beat Oregon State by 10 points. Who beat Oregon? Who beat us? Who beat Oregon State?
It was weeks ago, man. You can't. The memory's gone.
I don't know, man. All I know is that I think like trying to read too much into who beat who and when is sort of just futile. I don't look at that Oregon game and go, "Oh my god!" And I know some people do. Like maybe you do. I know PJ does. It's like, "Oh, I'm so angry that we didn't beat Oregon," and I'm just like, I don't know that you can read anything into anything from week to week.
Yeah. I mean, then what are we here for? But
well, yeah. Sure, but it's also like. I mean, I don't know. I don't look at that and go seriously think okay, I can really read a lot into this. I mean, we can say, yeah, it was great or it wasn't good or I wish we would have won or I mean, I get all that, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's more of looking at it as a way of Oregon in their other games has looked a lot more vulnerable, and they WSU didn't. Maybe they weren't quite as they against. WSU made a ton of mistakes and still were able to win by multiple touchdowns. So it's just, maybe WSU either isn't as good as you think or maybe it doesn't mean anything. But, I mean, all we have is those data points. So
right.
you got to look at them. And, I mean, we analyzed when we were talking about previewing Oregon, all we had to look at was one game for each team. And so that's all we're looking at. I don't know. You get that more when you're up 19-6 at one point, and you're thinking maybe you could have won that game. Obviously, we already went over some of the plays that made that not happen, but
yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping we get to preview USC. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I've watched a little bit of their games. It's not like this pure air raid. Stuff, but they're still throwing the ball a hell of a lot. And not, if I'll say something, we'll get into it later this week. Deion McIntosh has twice as many yards as the leading rusher for USC, and they've played 3 games. So I'm like, oh yeah, they are air raiding, even though they got some talented backs.
They do run the ball. They do run the ball. They just.
I mean, it's not the splits running passing that WSU was doing, but they still. But yeah, their backs are really good. So you gotta give them the ball. They have these 5-star backs. You gotta give them the ball. It's USC. But yeah. I guess I don't know what else to talk about with football other than hopefully we get to talk about football again.
Yeah, I mean I don't know that there's a whole lot else to say. I mean, when these things get canceled for a couple of weeks in a row, it's just you just go okay. That's just sort of part of the deal with everything that's going on right now. Small piece of news came out. Renard Bell said he was planning on coming back for next year, which is great.
Yeah, I think
we have had some.
I swear he had said that earlier.
He might have. Yeah, he might have. I mean, I don't know. We have had a few decommitments from the recruiting class, and it's been quite a while since we've had a commit.
Yeah.
So I'll say this: I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but I'm also somewhat wondering if there's not, and I haven't seen this reported anywhere, so I don't know if anybody else has sort of fleshed this out or not, but I'm kind of wondering if the recruiting class in a little bit of a holding pattern right now, as they sort of figure out the financials of bringing in a recruiting class, who's coming back again next year. Obviously they don't have the full complement of scholarships sort of committed for next year yet because of all the transfers that they've had. So there's that piece. And then there's also the piece of, which guys are going to stick around for another year. So which seniors are going to stick around for another year. And then the other piece is like I haven't seen this yet, and I would assume that the schools would know, or the schools would at least have some sense of what it's going to be. But are they still going to be held to an 85 scholarship limit, even with all these guys coming back? I haven't seen anything reported on that.
Me neither.
I don't know if there's something out there that I haven't seen, or if the football program has kind of a sense of that from the NCAA, even though nothing final has been decided. But like, I think there's a lot of stuff up in the air right now, and our recruiting class has kind of been sitting right at, I think it was up to, 19 at one point or 20 at one point. I think it's down to 17 kids now.
17 commits, right?
Yeah. And we haven't had a commitment in a while. So I'm just kind of thinking like maybe that there's a reason for that it's not so much, that it's not so much that there's a problem as it is maybe that they're just kind of maybe not going to take a full class because of all this stuff. And maybe that's kind of part of the situation. And if it is, it's going to be real interesting what happens here at the end. Because if that's the case, if some programs, if we're not the only program that ends up doing that, if in the end, some bigger programs end up taking, 20 kids or 21 kids instead of 25 kids, well, where do those other 4 kids go, right? Like, so if USC is taking 4 less kids, I mean, this goes back to, the days when schools could sign as many kids as they wanted, right? And they could sign 35 kids and then, kick older guys off the team or whatever. Or when before they had the 85 scholarship limit, you could give out, 100 scholarships. All of a sudden, now you've only got 85. Well, where are those other 15 going? They're filtering down, right? Yeah. So I do wonder if we're going to see, I mean, we're not that far away from signing day. The early signing day is only a few weeks away.
Yeah.
So, I'm really curious if, really curious if, some of these other guys that maybe are holding out, their decisions, and maybe they decide on, a bigger program, and then maybe some guy gets squeezed out. It just creates maybe this chain reaction of guys decommitting and moving and flipping. And if maybe we don't end up with, with some guys filtering down to us that maybe wouldn't otherwise filter down. I don't know. I'm kind of talking out of my ass right now, but it's I think it's definitely going to kind of be a fluid dynamic, and I'm definitely curious. Definitely curious how it's going to play out, and maybe what's going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, we'll find out soon. December 16th is early signing period. And as we've seen recently, that's been where the bulk of classes get signed since they put that into place. Maybe that could change a little bit this year, given, the nature of the pandemic and there potentially being, a vaccine and all this stuff. Maybe schools are looking to see what the world looks like in February versus now, but who knows? But yeah, I still think probably most will, get their signatures on the paper by December 16th, or on December 16th. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, if you have like 130 schools and they're all only taking 20 instead of 25, which they're not all always taking 25. Sometimes they're taking 30, Alabama. But if you have this, like, there might be like a few hundred kids that just aren't gonna get scholarships that normally get them, which sucks.
Kids that would normally be FBS kids trickle down to FCS. Like, it's gonna be a pretty kind of crazy side effect of the pandemic, that there will very likely be guys who would normally get football scholarships that aren't going to get them.
Yeah. Which
is kind of crazy. It's definitely a downside. I mean, like, as whatever our stance is on the dynamic between, college athletes and the schools and the exploitation thereof and the financial remuneration for these guys and all that kind of stuff. It still remains that, as many guys getting scholarships as possible is we are totally for, until the system changes. And there are going to be lots of guys who would normally get scholarships who probably aren't going to get them this year. And that does have a pretty significant impact on a lot of guys and potentially their lives. So.
Yeah, and you were talking earlier about will the NCAA allow more total scholarships over the 85? But there's the same as like even a school like WSU might not want to have more than 85 financials. So
absolutely.
So yeah, I'm sure like bigger schools would be hell yeah, like we'll pay for the 5 more scholarships. But WSU, Cal, Oregon State, like I don't know if they're doing that stuff.
Probably not.
Definitely not Cal. I know that Cal ain't paying for anything else. UCLA might not either. So, unless you get some donor come in and donate, $200,000. Here's 4 more scholarships for next year, something like that.
Absolutely.
I'll pay for the seniors,
Yep.
Something like that. But yes, I mean, getting Bell back is cool. I mean, you could see like a guy like Jihad Woods or a lot of the other guys that aren't even in the big names come back just for one more year. If they don't got anything else to do. I mean, Renard Bell's probably not going to the NFL. So if he wants to play football for another year, live that college life, maybe go for your get some credits towards your masters, whatever.
Heck yeah.
Do it,
That masters is some life-changing shit.
Plus he's a redshirt, so he 6th year. So hopefully he's already working on his masters.
He might walk out of there with a double major and a master's.
Yeah. So, especially given the, kind of the track, they put a lot of football players and basketball players and stuff on a track to graduate in 3.5 years. So, so if they go to the NFL, they can just leave, and like they can work on that stuff. But
and I mean, they're around a lot. Like that's the thing. Like they're around all summer. So take some classes. So yeah, I don't know. That's gonna be interesting. Gonna be interesting.
But hey, all in all, I'm happy to see Renard Bell play some more games for WSU.
Heck yeah, I am too, man.
Plus, he's really good for this offense. I like where he fits.
Yes, he is. He's leading. Like, I don't know how many people realize he's leading the team in receiving by a pretty significant margin.
Yeah, we've
he's been really, really good.
Yeah, we've talked about Harris and how he fits. It's both of they're kind of in the same like. We've seen Renard stretch the field from the slot quite a bit, and in this offense he gets to do that even more, and so he gets to use his speed and use his quickness, and so
he really is kind of the quintessential run and shoot receiver. Small guy, shifty, great acceleration, can get vertical from really any position. He's kind of perfect. I mean, we talked about that. I mean, he's perfect for the offense. So it's cool to see him doing it.
One more thing to add on. We're talking about these scholarships. We might as well just keep it rolling. So there's a long-term effect here because every freshman is a freshman again next year. Jaden DeLora is a freshman again next year. He's a true freshman still. Gunnar Cruz is a redshirt freshman again next year. Abe Lucas is still whatever. He'll be a redshirt sophomore again. All these guys. So, and Abe Lucas is the guy who probably will. I would see him potentially leaving early, but even other guys that are 5-year guys, like they could potentially just end up staying 5 years when they would have only done 4 or 6 when they would have done 5. So that makes it probably easier long term for the school to take less freshmen, knowing that they're going to have those other guys in 4 years still, versus they're all losing that year. And only because it's not about just the guys that choose to come back next year. You're having guys that if they're sophomores right now, it might not be as much of a decision to just stay for senior year, because you won't have that like senior next to your name when you're in your 4th year. It'll still just say junior. So it'll be interesting. There's a long-term effect here. I mean, I'm glad they did it because especially if you look at WSU, like who knows how many games they're going to end up playing.
Max it's going to be 5.
Yeah,
well, 6 I guess if they go to a bowl game, but.
So yeah, like you have teams unlikely. Like Syracuse are like playing a whole season, like a lot of the ACC teams and stuff. I think Syracuse is like 1-9, so they've already got 10 games in the bag. But Pac-12 teams not playing much. I mean, another thing you say that now 4 of the Pac-12 bowl games are canceled. So the Sun Bowl canceled today. So who knows like, how many Pac-12 teams will be in bowl games. Of course, they also put the requirement while other, the NCAA or the other schools said, other leagues said, hey, you don't actually have to be 500 to go to a bowl game. Pac-12 did say you have to be 500 to go to a bowl game, which they might not even have places to put the teams anyway. So.
Yeah, I think that's what that was a function of. I mean, as much as the Pac-12 does its silly things, but I think the Pac-12 had some sense that, the Holiday Bowl is not going to happen. And as we found out, I think it was today, right? Or yesterday, the Sun Bowl isn't going to happen. And I think they kind of knew that they were going to lose some of their bowl games. So you don't want, your bowl games fighting over, all 12 of your teams, and then picking the teams that, they would want to pick regardless of record.
Yeah.
So.
But hey, what if the Heart of Dallas Bowl wanted your 2 and 4, whoever, I don't know, 1 and 5 Arizona.
Yeah.
If Arizona's going to win, I don't know. But yeah, I guess we stretched that out a lot longer than I thought we would.
Did.
Now we're actually in the proper time to take a break, and then we'll come back. We'll talk about some beer and some basketball.
We're back, Craig.
All right. Well, I'm excited to talk about hoops. We got games.
Yeah.
Let's get this beer out of the way first.
Let's be honest. We only talked about football because that's what the people want.
Yeah. And I don't know. Once we started digging into that scholarship stuff, it's pretty interesting. We didn't even prep that. We just that was as as spontaneous, as organic as it comes in podcasting. But yeah, Jeff, what are you drinking?
I am having the PB&J P51 Porter from Wingman. So I was at Costco, and they had a 4-pack of various pints of pastry beers. So I picked that up, and I'm having this, and it's okay. I'm still not quite sure. I'm not picking up as much peanut butter as I would like.
Yeah.
I'm definitely catching the raspberry, and it's actually a really good raspberry flavor. Typically, I don't know, sometimes those fruit flavors can get just sort of like overly sweet. Mm-hmm. But I really liked the choice of raspberry because raspberries, are naturally tart, right? Yeah. So that kind of the tartness of it makes it so that the beer's not overpoweringly sweet. It is sort of interesting to do this style in a porter and not a stout. So you don't get like so you're getting kind of these, pastry flavors, but not like the real, the kind of thick, mouthfeel and that sort of thing. But and I'm still definitely catching. So the P51 I haven't had in a while, but I'm assuming like most porters, it's got, coffee overtones.
And it's a big porter. It's like an 8% porter versus
this one's 7.5. So, and it's, so I'm definitely kind of catching a little bit of coffee too. And so like the coffee and raspberry, it's almost got a little kind of like, I don't know, almost like a mocha flavor to it. Like, cause you could get a raspberry mocha, I guess. So I don't know, but it's okay. I'm, it's still warming up. So I don't know if I'm going to catch some more of that peanut butter as it gets a little warmer. So I don't know. We can check back in later if you really want to know.
You got to prep better with those dark beers, man. You got to stick them out of the fridge for a little bit.
I was like, I wasn't really thinking about it, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to have one of these, and so I don't know. What are you drinking?
Well, I'm pretty excited. I don't think I've ever had a beer from this brewery, even though they are a Seattle brewery, a pretty small one. I am drinking a beer from Burt Gilman Brewing Company.
Ooh.
So named after the Burt Gilman Trail, because they actually are right on the Burt Gilman Trail in Seattle, very close to UW. So one thing, if you do want to visit there, which especially if you're riding your bike or whatever, you do have to like go right by Husky Stadium to get there. So that kind of sucks. Which I did, and it was a bummer. But so what this beer is, it's part of a set they released in holiday packs for their first bottle barrel-aged beer releases. It's all waxed and fancy. They have this like BGBC logo stamped on the front of the wax, which I haven't seen that very often, where they put a stamp like on the front of the wax versus sometimes they do it on the top, which means you pull the cap off and you don't see it anymore. But this one, you pull the cap off and you still have the wax right there in the front. It's very nice wax. It was a pain in the butt to get off. Very thick blue wax. It's called Sakhalin. I don't know. It's a name of a Russian town. It's a Russian Imperial Stout, 13.5% aged in bourbon barrel, 13.6% aged in bourbon barrels. So they released 3 different beers. There was this one. There was a Russian Imperial Stout that was about 11.5%. That was aged in maple barrels, so basically bourbon barrels that were then had maple aged in them, which is pretty common. I'll say that like those are not often my favorite beers. Like I don't love the maple barrel treatment, so that's why I didn't go with that one tonight. And then the kind of creme de la creme of the pack was a double barreled 15.5% Russian Imperial Stout. Ooh. Which means they basically aged it in a whiskey barrel, a rye whiskey barrel, and they took it out, aged it in another new rye whiskey barrel. So that's what you call double barreling. So I didn't have that one, but I went with the basic bitch of the crew, the Sakhalin. It's a real cool kind of simple blue label with like silver, maybe even gray. I would say more like gray font on there. It's a real nice simple font. Yeah, I've heard good things about this brewery. Primarily their IPAs. They've won some awards, even Great American Beer Fest awards for their IPAs. I'm just not one to like go drive out of my way to get some IPAs. Typically, I can get plenty of IPAs here, or through other service. They don't even have them mailed to me. I don't know. I'm not, but I was awake, late on I think it was some night, Thanksgiving or something last week. I saw it pop up that they had these, so I bought them, and I was like, well, I'm already going up to. I'd already bought some other beer to pick up at Fremont and Midnight Still this weekend, so I was like, well, I'll just pop over to Burt Gilman and pick it up. So I have these beers now. This one's real nice. It's especially first effort right off the bat. Definitely it's a Russian Imperial, so it's got a little bit more. It's not as sweet as a lot of like big stouts you get. The Russian Imperial stouts are a little bit more harsher, like a little bit more there's like a little more hop in there, a little more other stuff, but it's not like thick that you would expect from 13.6. It drinks kind of a little nicer. I get some toffee. I actually get some kind of like barley wine-ish notes in there too, some like toffee and caramel, but I think that's probably from the barrel, so the barrel's doing some good work there. Overall, really solid beer. I wouldn't go like one of the most elite of the elite barrel-aged stouts I've ever had, but I would definitely put it well above average, really solid. Definitely impressed with Burt Gilman. I'm really, really excited to try that double barrel one, so I wanted to ease into it. I'm really impressed with this one. Again, I think a Russian Imperial Stout's it's a different choice. Like a lot of some breweries will do just kind of a sweeter stout to age in barrels, and some like Fremont does an oatmeal stout, which has its own different character. So I kind of like that they did a Russian Imperial Stout, and I say, especially when I put it in the realm of Russian Imperial barrel aged stouts I've had. I definitely put it up there with the good ones like Matryoshka from however you say it, Matryoshka from Fort George. It's definitely better than barrel aged. The North Coast one, Old Rasputin, I would definitely put it above that. So I think it's a very, very good beer. Definitely living up to some of the, not a ton of hype, but I've seen some of my beer friends that are really into beer that they live near Burt Gilman, so they've had their beer and they know that they're good, and so that was on their recommendation is why I got them, and so yeah, check it out.
That's always nice.
Just plug your nose when you're going by so you don't smell the garbage dump next to Husky Stadium, and
just give it a couple of middle fingers.
Yeah, give it a couple middle fingers, shake your head in disappointment. But anyways, yeah, I was like, man, it'd be fun to be riding your bike on that Burt Gilman trail and just, you literally can just pop off right over into the brewery.
That would be rad.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's go for a bike. Like, I could be coaxed into exercising just a little bit more if it was like, hey, we're taking the bikes out for, I don't know. Hey, there's beer at the end. Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's stop at the beer and
biking and beering is great, dude. Amanda and I have done that a few times. We did it in like Olympia Lacey area. We've done it in Seattle, just like making stops. You just have like a little bit of beer at each stop, and then you kind of sober up a little bit in between. You got to make sure your stops are far enough apart so you're not getting too shit faced. You can get a little more drunk on a bike than you.
Yeah, I was gonna say that seems a lot better than like drinking and running or something like.
Yeah. I mean,
all that beer's like shaking in your stomach as you're running versus.
Yeah, I've definitely done some cycling and drinking before. You just got to pace yourself so you're not getting shit faced and falling over on your face, and also when you're riding around in a city, so you're not running into cars. That's key. So you just got to pace yourself. But I've had some fun biking and beer, and haven't done it in a while. I've heard you can ride along Burt Gilman, and there's a few beers that, a few breweries not too far off that you can stop. So Jeff, maybe we'll plan an outing. And we can do a little biking and beering sometime.
That sounds good.
Nice. And plus on Burt Gilman, you got to go slow anyway. So you just kind of keep a nice leisurely pace. Yeah.
A lot of people out there.
But anyways, that was quite a tangent. Let's talk about Cougar basketball.
Yes. 2-0.
Cougar basketball games.
Feels so good.
Didn't lose, as you said.
I mean, and they're actually relatively normal too, because normally there would only be like 100 people in the gym for these games.
Exactly. There would have been like 14 students. Although, given the following I've seen watching like a WSU versus Texas Southern or WSU versus Eastern game, in past years, WSU versus a Big Sky team, whatever. Given this year, I feel like there's more. Maybe it's just the nature of people don't have anything to do.
Maybe.
But there's definitely like a little more excitement around the program, which of course leads to more
expectations
and disappointment.
Disappointment when they only barely beat Texas Southern and Eastern,
a team that a team that no one else has heard of.
Right.
And then second, a team that everyone obviously considers to be on a lower rung because they're close. Yep. Everyone knows who they are. They're big. Then they're a Big Sky team.
Yeah. Shouldn't we be destroying Eastern at everything?
But as we know, when CJ left, we knew this year was going to be less of an upward. More of a try to tread water.
Yeah, and there's going to be a transition year.
Yeah. So it's less of an upward momentum and more of a transition. Not saying that, I'll say there's definitely flashes in guys that told me this year could be better once it, maybe once it gets going a little more. Maybe once Bonton maybe can hit a few shots, because we saw what happens when he hits a few shots in the second half against Texas Southern.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. I guess what are kind of we can talk about the games, parse them out, but let's kind of start with, we're 2 games in. What are kind of your general impressions?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first big thing is that they won them both. I mean, look, as much as I want to focus on process and, are good things happening on the floor or not? I mean, all the things that, we say we believe in, more than results. I mean, we try to stay away from results-based analysis. And so I'm not going to color my analysis based on whether they won or lost, but I'm going to say winning's good. The players want to win. Everybody wants to win. So, the fact they figured out how to win both these games is a good thing. Obviously I think most people want to talk about Bonton because that's just the easiest thing to, I think it's just the easiest, most obvious point of analysis, right, is when you got a guy who's got what is it now, 41 shots through 2 games plus 17 shots from the free throw line. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's more than,
plus the
probably
turnovers
CJ Ellaby had in any two. So the usage, right? Because when you factor in the turnovers, the usage is 37%, which is absolutely bonkers. So, and I don't know that CJ Ellaby ever had a 2-game stretch last year where he had 41 shots and 17 free throw attempts. So I'm guessing the answer is no. So, obviously that's the easy thing. I will say this. I mean, obviously the first game was bad. That was actually really quite terrible. And a major reason why the offense was such a struggle. He's taken so many shots and so many of them were contested, and he did get kind of hot there for about a 5-minute stretch or so. And kind of that maybe ended up being the difference, but that game was not so great. Last game, honestly, obviously the shooting wasn't much better. He ended up going, I think, 1 for 10 or 1 for 11 on twos.
Yeah, 1 for 10.
Which is like, horrendous. But at the same time, I will say a number of those twos he should have made. I would think at least 2 or 3 of them, maybe even like 4 of them, he should have made. And I would think he would make in the future, right? So, and as I watched the second half, just the offense in general, and again, people tend to focus on offense, so, I'll go ahead and focus on offense too. I don't know. I just felt like the offense was moving a lot more smoothly in the second half. I mean, it wasn't perfect and it wasn't like great by any means. But they finished, what'd they finish overall? Like 0.97 or something like that.
0.96
points per possession. Yeah. And I know you can't really do this because it's all part of the same game. But if you take away the first 5 minutes of the game where they scored about 3 points on their first 10 possessions or so, right? Or 12 possessions, like all of a sudden that overall number looks a lot different. And what I saw was a team that, who was sort of starting to figure things out. The ball was moving better. It wasn't just getting stuck with Bonton. When Bonton was driving, and so I said this to you after the game, I was like, I did not realize he was 1 for 10 from 2. Like I knew he missed some, but I just kind of didn't really have a sense of that. And I think the reason why is because I kind of focus on, again, process more than results. And he was getting good looks. He just wasn't finishing them. And just the offense overall looked like it had a better sense of what it was trying to do. The ball was moving. Guys were attacking space. Cutters were finding spots. Dan Dickow even mentioned at one point that they were running a Princeton-style thing. I know that's what Smith did mostly at San Francisco. I don't think we did it a ton last year, and I'm certainly not a coach, so I can't really speak to that definitively. But my sense was that we weren't really doing a lot of that last year. Hopefully, maybe we're incorporating some of that this year, where we're taking guys who are big and long and pretty good passers and good movers without the ball, and we're just finding ways to attack space. And I felt like the second half was a real move in the right direction with that. So overall, after 2 games, I mean, I'm tickled that they won the first 2, and I feel like the things that they did progressively from the beginning of the first game to the end of the second game are things to really be encouraged about.
And I'm going to point out something that I think, because a lot of the fans probably didn't pick up following this team as much until Pac-12 play last year. They lost to Santa Clara. They lost to Nebraska Omaha. They lost to a bad Nebraska team.
Yep.
All in the first 5 games last year. And so just because they don't look that great against Texas Southern, that doesn't mean they can't get better. And
right.
And they've lost these games over and over again. In the Ernie years, they lost some head scratchers, UTEP, Idaho multiple times. There's just they've lost to bad teams early. With Ernie, you're it feels like an indictment of the program, but with Smith, maybe that's not fair, but I feel like he's got a little bit more benefit of the doubt. To where also there's so many new guys on this team, and they're very clearly trying to figure out how to use them. One thing that was very interesting, Yakumovsky played 4 minutes in the first game and played 31 minutes
31.
in the second. And overall, his numbers don't look great, like when you just like raw like numbers, but you can see what he's got. Like he was 2 of 9. He had 3 turnovers. That stuff is not good. But let's just remember, this is his second college basketball game. He's built already. Like he's built like an upperclassman already.
Yep.
I think you said he's built like a man.
Yeah, I mean he looks like a man already. And I think he's a little older. I think he's 19.
Yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah,
definitely.
He's already played kind of semi-professionally, like, so he's, that's, you can see that in his rebounding, his defense a little bit, but also, man, the guy's ability to be like this. We kind of were hoping he could be this point forward, and you saw some of those skills against Eastern.
Yep.
The way he drives to the paint, and he is not looking to put a shot up. He's looking to feed, and he had 3 assists. All were very good assists. Like these were not just swing pass assists. And the 2 threes he hit were impressive. He's got range. 2 of 9.
And they look good, right? Like the shot looks good.
Yeah, 2 of 9, 3 turnovers, not great, but also 3 assists, 6 rebounds. That's good. TJ Bamba in the second game.
Yeah.
He played a lot more. The only reason he didn't play with more probably was foul trouble, we'll talk about someone else in that matter in a second. But Bamba again, that dude looks like he's ready to go. Like he's a bit like, oh my God, I think all of us like on our Slack and stuff, like he is huge. Like he's every bit of that 6'5", 208. That is not,
by the way,
an
Craig,
exaggeration.
Would you call him long and athletic?
I would certainly call him long and athletic. But yeah, I mean, that's a guy you're hoping he can maybe handle some of the ball handling.
Yeah.
Because Bonton really needs to play off the ball more.
Yeah. He did more of that in the second half.
He did. Yep. So yeah, Bamba actually did, his stat line did look good, 9 points, hit a 3, 3 of 4 from 2s. He had 6 boards himself, another 3 assists for him. Just played really well. He looked like a guy that was, a step above athletically for sure than these Eastern guards. Like he looked like a Pac-12 level athleticism guard. Plus, if he can hit threes, man, like if he can get threes, that'd be huge for WSU. Like if he's the guy who can knock down, and he's not going to be a big 3-point shooter. But if he can knock down his open looks, he's already, ahead of where Noah was last year.
Yep.
So, and then another guy who we didn't have in the first game, did have in the second game, who I think, he may be a bit, they may be working him in. He may play more. We don't know. But Miles Fitzgerald Warren, that's definitely a guy that can handle the ball take care of some of the ball handling. He had some nice moments. I think between him and Bamba, there's hope that we can see Bonton play more off the ball and not have to dominate the ball so much, which doesn't seem to be where he's at his best. I said to you, like, I'd be curious to see what his, like, particularly in, like what his percentage is on like pull up threes and stuff. I don't know. I know he hit one off a screen from Mark Kovetsky, which we'll talk about that in a second too. Yeah. But we'll just run down all the players because this is fun. Like we have all these new players. It's
I
fun.
know, right?
But yeah, I kind of want to talk about all the freshmen right now, or the new guys, because obviously Fitzgerald Warren's not a freshman, but who I really want to talk about though, I think he's the darling of the first 2 games, even though he only played a combined 29 minutes. Is Effa? Is it Abogadi? Is it Abogidi? Is it Abogudi?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So
poor Greg Heister and Dan Dickow. Ugh.
So Effa Abogidi. Effa
Yes.
Abogidi.
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 Yes.
So that's how you say his name. That's
because
not
that's how he says.
That's how he says he says his
says
name.
the name.
That is how his name is said.
So that's actually it, because he said it.
And so the WSU pronunciation guide said Abogud. It's like Abogudi. And so I honestly don't know where Heister and Dickow got Abogadi. I don't know where they got that.
Well, and then Chazanow also, somebody asked him about it on Twitter, and he was like...
And he had something different.
He was like, well, yeah, basically it's like what Heister was saying, but maybe a little bit more like this, which also was still not...
Still wrong.
Abogidi. It was something else. So,
but
anyway.
Abogidi has many fouls, as many ways as you can pronounce his name.
Yes.
But so... What we knew about him is that he hasn't played basketball for a long time. He's not like a lifetime basketball player. He also was hurt when he was at he went to the NBA. What do you call it? The NBA Academy in Australia. Yep. So he was hurt a lot when he played there. He doesn't have the experience, but holy shit, is that dude athletic? And if this is him. Not like non-experienced, like one, the dude can hit a 22-footer. Like, who thought? No one was looking for that coming in.
No.
And he's basically he's had his toe on the line for 2 threes. Otherwise, he'd be like 3 of 3 from deep right now.
Yeah.
Like, or 4 of 4. He'd be 4 of 4 if he had his toe on the line. But that's like. Just what a presence.
Yeah. What's wild about it is we've been told that, he didn't really have that shot when he showed up to Pullman, and now all of a sudden he has it. That's kind of how gifted, this guy is. It's, a lot of times we say things like sky's the limit. It like that actually applies here. That
he's already looking like a guy that is not going to be here for 4 years. If he makes the strides that he can make, it might be like next year is his last year here, because he is so ridiculous. He is the most athletic player that WSU has had in a long time. I'm trying to think. Maybe. Yeah.
I can't. I could not think of anybody who was that athletic certainly at that size.
Yeah.
We've had some we've had some athletic dudes.
There's guys like, I think we're going back to like Jeff Verum. Obviously Marcus Capers is very athletic.
Ivory Clark. That we've had some pretty athletic dudes, but not at 6'10".
And that 225 is like there's muscle there.
Oh yeah.
And he's got bounce. He's already had multiple super impressive block shots. He's
just so quick off the floor. That was the thing with both of them. Yeah. Like the one block that he had against Texas Southern, it was, guy comes into the paint, lofts up a weak little jump hook, and he just, quick off the floor, just swats it away. The one against Eastern was hilarious because the guy's, he's got 4 fouls, so the guy's trying to drive at him, and he kind of, goes right to the glass, and you can just see Efe's like, really? And it just erases it. Just absolutely erases it. So, and without too much difficulty. He's something special, man. And as a rebounder too.
Yeah.
Kind of one of the big things about rebounding, they do this in the NBA. This is a stat they use in the NBA that, I don't think they use too much in college. I imagine there's probably like Synergy or something tracks this sort of thing, but they talk about like out of zone rebounds, which are basically like how many rebounds does a guy go get that aren't like just kind of falling right to him. Yeah. Where a guy, so for contrast, this is not to rip on this guy, but a guy who is a very poor out of zone rebounder would be a guy like Jeff Pollard, who, is only going to get a rebound if it basically falls in his lap because he's good at boxing out, but he's not able to really jump above anybody. He's not able to go get a rebound in the sense unless it's coming right to him. Efe's the exact opposite, right? I mean, this is a guy who, will go grab rebounds that are not in his area at all. Like he'll, now sometimes that's a downside.
Yep. I mean, that was three of his five fouls were him trying to do that against.
I mean, he'll start to figure that out. But, ultimately there are some rebounds that he gets where, where he jumps and he can sort of jump off to the side and out jump a guy and, reach out with his arm and pull a rebound in. The kind of stuff we haven't really seen a whole lot. Probably the last guy we had that was really, really good at that, maybe Aaron Baines.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe Aaron Baines. DJ Shelton was a pretty good rebounder by the time he was done. Obviously Josh Hawkinson was an amazing rebounder. Although his seemed to be less out of zone type rebounding and more positioning and reading the rebounds. So, not to downplay what he did, it's a different way, but Efe does it with just like, this is his pure athleticism where he can go get a ball. And, that is, we have not had that in a while. And it's like, it is so cool. It is so cool to watch. It really, 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 really fun. And when he figures out the nuances of the game and, learns not, I mean, when he got his fifth rebound, I know he's kind of looking around like, wait, what? And it was like, oh my God. Like all of us as we're watching that game saw him go for that rebound and we went, oh no. And then tweet, it was like, yep, there he goes. You could just see Kyle Smith too, was in the background. Like his head, he's like watching, and the whistle blows and you just see his head drop. Like he just goes, head goes down because he knew it was coming.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's super exciting. He'll learn these things. It's going to be, it's going to happen more and more, like over and over again this year. He's going to get fouls. I mean, if you remember young Aaron Baines, like he had the same issue too. But so that's going to be an issue, but man, like he's just, what a start. I think, I'll be interested to see, offensively how well he'll do when like, the players are more his size and closer to his athleticism. I don't think he'll have his 90 effective field goal percentage keep going, but
no.
But I saw someone make a point though. He might not be getting these offensive rebound fouls against like bigger, stronger teams because he's just not going to be there to get that foul. Like he's not going to be trying to reach over a guy.
Not be jumping over dudes.
Not be jumping over a guy that's like 3 inches shorter and 50 pounds lighter. So it's it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts. It'd be nice to have, another like 6 games, 8 games versus just whoever before we got into Pac-12 play. But we're heading into that. I guess, obviously, let's talk about some of the older guys. We talked about Bonton already. Some of the returners. I think the main ones are Noah, Kuntz, DJ, and Vova. Tony Miller has been injured. He played in the first game, was injured in the first game, and did not play in the second game. Hopefully we can get him back. I will add as a side point there, I know I think a lot of Coug fans are frustrated because Iwu was very much hampered by COVID and only played 6 players in that game. I will say they had most of their best players were on the floor, and I'm not sure. So they had Kim Aiken, they had Jacob Davison, they had Tanner Groves.
They certainly had all their best scorers.
Yeah, they had all their best scorers. I don't know how deep of a rotation Ewa would have ran in that game anyway. Like, I don't know if they would have went over 7 deep anyway, because they're playing a Pac-12 team.
Possible.
They're playing a Pac-12 team. This is a big game for them. They're not going to be like testing out guys, and maybe they will. Maybe they would. I don't know. I will say Loggins. Was that his name? What is it?
Yeah, sure.
Lagans. I don't say his name.
I'm
impressed.
I don't know.
I'm impressed by him. I think he's.
Yeah.
I think he's a hell of a coach. So I don't know how long he'll be at Eastern. We might see him at somewhere bigger soon. So, but anyway, so yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, we probably should have beat him by more, but at WSU, you pointed out to me, like WSU was also missing.
WSU's a bunch of guys.
And they don't talk about it because it's the start of the year, so you don't really know who's playing. But we know that Tony Miller should be playing.
Yep.
But there's Deshaun Jackson is also out. And that's a guy who could have been a difference maker against, teams like Southern and Eastern, who are much smaller lineups, to have your 6'10", 240 guy and there's 230 guy in there,
Yep. Athletic guy who can, guard a pick and roll and, do the kinds of things you need to do against Eastern.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, so anyways, back to the team. So like Kuntz has, he's definitely added some muscle. Added some weight. He looks a little stronger. He still gets bullied a little bit, because even Tanner Groves bullied him or pushed him around a little bit. But the first game, it's hard to tell. He's had so many free throws in the first game. Once they got into the bonus in that second half, he was getting free throws off, rebound fouls, all sorts of fouls. So, he was big. He hit all his free throws in that first game, so that was huge. He's still maybe struggling from deep, was 1 of 4 against Eastern. Kuntz really, to be an effective offensive player, Kuntz needs to be like a 35-40% three-point shooter. Yeah. We definitely need that from him. But he's always been a savvy defensive guy. He's just never had the kind of heft to, he's got a little bit of bounce. He knows where to go. He knows where to be. He reads he reads players really well. He reads the offensive player very well. I think he's definitely got defensive skill, but he's always just not had the weight. I think he's got a little bit more weight that'll serve him well. He's definitely been rebounding better than he ever did. So that's really that's positive. If he can rebound better, that'd be huge. Then if he's not hitting threes, he actually is providing some more value. Wait, do you have any other thoughts on Kuntz? We could talk about Rodman and Noah, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, the funny thing is he's not actually rebounding at any better rate right now than he was last year, which I found
that's shocking, actually.
Yeah, which I found sort of interesting. But
yeah, you're right. Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, but it definitely looks better. I don't know if that's. I guess I would just say he won. Was able to win some 50-50 rebounds.
Yeah.
That he wasn't winning. A year ago or 2 years ago. So definitely encouraged by him. He does a lot of little things that help the team win. And I know that's sort of a cliche for sure. Yeah, but that's true to some degree with him, I think. Again,
he has not turned the ball over in 2 games, so that's helpful.
That's a big deal. He's not turned the ball over. He's not, committing a bunch of fouls. He's really not doing things that hurt you. Which is good. And even though he's not really contributing much offensively right now outside of his 171.4 free throw rate, which is
that's
humorous.
When he took 1 field goal attempt against Texas Southern and had 9 free throws.
Yeah.
Like that's how you end up with a 171.4.
Yeah, I love that. So I mean, it's, I am curious to see, if last year he really faded as conference play came about. Yep. A lot of that was, the strength and the athleticism and, there's certain things that, no matter how smart a guy is, that are tougher to overcome. Right. And so we'll see if this sticks around. We'll see if he can do it. I hope he can. He seems like a good kid. And, again, like you mentioned, the big thing is he's got to be able to stretch the defense. He's in there with a lot of these guys. Like if they can just hit like 35% from 3, if they can just do that because I don't think this team, I don't think this team's on track to be a great shooting team. Like, and I know that's probably not going out on a major limb after what we've seen the first 2 games. But I think, for example, I don't know if you remember, last year CJ got off to a really slow start from behind the arc. And it was like, oh,
so
man.
So did Bonton, yeah.
Right. But it was also like, yeah, we know he can shoot, though. Like we know this is going to come around. We know it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. I'm not sure how many of these guys I look at and think, Yeah, they're really, really going to come around. I mean, we know Bonton can shoot, but the problem is he takes shots that are lower percentage, right? I mean, he's taking threes off the bounce and things like that. Noah Williams, I don't know. I mean, he's 3 of 7 right now, which is cool. But I'm not sure that's, I don't know. Shot still looks really inconsistent. Fitzgerald Warren, missed all 3 of his in the last game. Certainly didn't look at him and think, oh yeah, that's a great looking stroke. He just, got unlucky. Ryan Rapp 0 for 7.
Yeah.
Again, you're not looking at him going, that's a great stroke. He's going to come around and shoot 40%.
Yeah, he's got kind of he's got a lot of
moving parts.
There's a lot of support hand in the finish
yeah.
too. Yeah.
So there's that. And, TJ Bamba did hit 1 of 2, which is great. But I also, again, look at the shot and go,
Yeah, and he's not going to take many, I don't think.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if you remember, it reminds me of like when Marvin Cannon was suddenly a 3-point shooter for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then that all came crashing down to earth. One guy who I think really could be a legit 3-point shooter, 40% plus, is DJ Rodman.
Yep.
I do think that's a possibility. But that's one guy out of all these guys where I think, he's got potential maybe to be like a legit 40% sharpshooter. The rest of these guys, I'm all thinking, if they get to mid 30s, I guess that's probably going to be maybe at the top end. Maybe Yakimovsky could be there.
Yeah.
I watch him shoot, I think, that's a great looking stroke. Like the ball comes off his hand, nice high arc, good rotation. All those things that you kind of look for. To say, okay, is this going to be a consistent shot?
Just don't fall into that Abe Lodwick trap. Yep. Beautiful stroke, and took him about 4 years for it to come around.
Well, I will say I did. I watched enough highlights of him playing international ball and watched him hit enough threes in international ball to say, I think he can do it. I don't think it's going to take years for that to come around. So.
But I would say back on Rodman, he's just like Kuntz. Like he's got to hit those threes to truly be, an effective player. If he can hit 40 or even 35, and with the on ball defense he plays, I know people like to talk about rebounding because of his dad, but he really isn't that good of a rebounder. I mean, he is for his size, but he's small and he's just not in the positions that you want. But he's a very good defender, and he definitely can be your 3-and-D guy. He's getting a lot of minutes, so he's got to knock down those threes for us, because otherwise, like he doesn't shoot much. And so when he typically does, I will say it seems like he's definitely got more of a green light than he did. Like he's pulled, like he pulls quickly. I feel like everyone does at this point, but it seems like everyone has a green light. But yeah, so I think DJ and Kuntz are kind of almost in the same corner, sort of area where they were kind of looking them for 3-and-D guys, and hopefully DJ. I definitely have the two. I think Kuntz has a decent looking stroke too, but I think Rodman's definitely the guy. You kind of hope that he can come around and start hitting threes. That would make a huge difference. We also have Vova to talk about, who was
everybody's favorite giant Ukrainian.
Yeah, whose number one asset is just being a big motherfucker. But at 7'1",
let's not undersell the importance of that.
Yeah, he is 7'1", 270
pounds,
and honestly was massive down the stretch. Where he was he was not in the game plan to play against Eastern with their smaller, quicker kind of front line. But he was massive literally and figuratively down the stretch against Eastern, offensively in particular.
Yep. Yeah, he was without taking shots. Like, that was the big thing. He did it without taking shots. He was just getting in the way and, setting screen after screen after screen on the ball and rolling to the basket. And, he's definitely not the most graceful guy rolling to the basket, and probably doesn't have the greatest hands on the planet, but also, teams have to respect that, right? They've got to respect the role. And if they don't, then you get what happened there towards the end, which is a little shovel to him and a big dunk. So, he was good enough in those final 7 minutes of the game.
Just getting in the way.
Yeah, just getting in the way. And, and then on defense, they had to go to zone with him in there, which, when they weren't turning to him in the first half, I thought, it's got to be because they think they have to go zone. I mean, you're talking Tanner Groves is 6'9", 235. And he's definitely a little more mobile. He's a 3-point shooter, definitely a stretch five.
Yeah,
right?
You're not gonna want Vova going out to the 3-point line having
trying to guard
that. Yeah.
ball screens.
He's just
going to
run by him.
Yeah. I do wonder, obviously we never get answers to these sorts of things, but I do wonder if Kyle Smith was maybe trying to hold him back, knowing that he may have to use him at some point, but if he uses him too early, goes to the zone, in the first half, and then Eastern is a little flummoxed by the zone, and then you come back with the zone again later as you play him again. All of a sudden, Eastern's now seen the zone. They've kind of figured out how to maybe pick the zone apart. It's like this chess match, right? And
as we talked mentioning, like Eastern likes to shoot threes, and they have a lot of shooters, so going into a zone can be very dangerous.
Yep. And so you wait until the end and throw it at them, hope that it throws them off their game, and sure enough, it did. And it was cool. I mean, Eastern definitely did get some easy looks in the paint. Again, Vova is big, but not very mobile. And, he kind of gets in the way, and he had a couple of floaters, shot over the top of him. But, they didn't get any easy looks from three, which I think is the thing you worry most about with a zone. And so that makes you happy. And again, on offense, he did what he did on offense. So, just a really nice, extremely impactful 2.1 rebound performance, which was, I think, pretty extremely underrated for its impact on the game.
Yeah, and it's fun watching him set those screens up top. He just completely obliterates players. Like, they're gone. They're disappeared. And
they have to choose: are they going to go over the top, or are they going to go under? They go under, and Bonton, sinks a three. Or they go over the top, and then Noah Williams is sort of now probing into the lane, and guys are darting for cutting to the basket, and all of a sudden Vova's rolling, and so it's definitely a pick your poison kind of thing, and he does a thing on the floor that that really Jeff Pollard, that was kind of his main role last year, and we don't have another guy like that right now. I mean, FA sets some screens as well, but he's just not as wide and doesn't maybe set as sturdy of a screen, and so watching Vova do it was pretty fun. Pretty fun. A lot of people don't like watching ball screen offense, but I don't know, man. You watch a 7'1", 270-pound monster just out there, just making people try to run around him, is pretty funny and pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, when the offenses run well, then you're not just worrying about the screener rolling. Like they, as we saw, it was great, and we can talk about Noah now. So Noah, who had about as bad as an offensive game as you can have in the first game, came out, and he and Vova working that ball screen offense in the last 5 minutes was beautiful, and Noah really showed what he can do, and beyond what we thought he could do, hitting those threes, 3 of 4 from three. That was huge. I think his shot looks definitely better. He's got a little more hop to it. He definitely lifts it better.
Yeah.
Which will, just getting a little more arc on the ball. He shot his threes very flat-footed last year.
Yep.
Which it was also almost striking to watch him shoot a three. He had you could, he might not jump over a piece of paper when he shot his threes, but this year he's definitely, got a little more jump in his shot. That helps. That's how you can get hot, and also you can find more opportunities because you don't have to take so damn long to shoot your three. Noah obviously still the defensive guy that we knew from last year. But I swear, after that first game, you were really worried that he, maybe not regressed, but just had not added anything.
Yeah.
But we saw the kind of the best of what he can be in that second game.
he was the reason why we won, right? If he doesn't do that in the final, 5-10 minutes of the game, we don't win that game, which is pretty remarkable. Not that he's incapable or anything like that, but just like to see a guy like that absolutely take over a game. And I think that's the part that, the thing that drew me to him last year as the unofficial president of the unofficial Noah Williams fan club is his attitude and his just doesn't give a fuck about anybody or anything. And he's just gonna, he just believes unrelentingly in his ability. And even if maybe, he's not as skilled of a scorer as we might like, or maybe he thinks he is, it's still really good at times. And if he can do this, like he's not going to do this, every game,
Mm-hmm.
but if he can give some sort of reasonable approximation of that, right, where he's averaging, 12 points a game or 13 points a game, right, and he's averaging 5 or 6 rebounds a game, and he's averaging 3 assists a game and maybe 2 steals a game. Like if that's what he's doing, this team is in a really good spot, a really nice spot offensively, because we already know what he can do on defense. I know that, last year when he was on the floor, there were some metrics that really supported the idea that the defense was just, another notch up when he was on the floor. So we already know what he can do. He can do that way. Offensively, again, there's all these what ifs, right? We keep saying this about different guys. If they can do this, if they can do this. And same is true for Noah. Like if he can be this guy, we already know he's going to be aggressive and relentless, and he's going to have, sort of unwavering belief in his ability. If he can do that, if he can really do that, this team really takes on, a different look, takes on a different complexion on offense. Because he's not, he's not a pure point guard. He's not a pure shooting guard. He's not, but he's a good enough ball handler to probe the lane. He's a good enough passer to find people. And hopefully this, what we saw is that he's a good enough shooter, to make people pay at times. And that's kind of it. He's got to hit 1 or 2 from 3 to make defenses really stay honest and pay attention. And if he can do that, watch out for sure.
I mean, he hit 4 threes all of last year.
Yep.
And he's at 3 right now. So
yep.
So I think that just he didn't have a game where he hit 3 in any game last year. So just that was very positive development. I think Noah will always be a guy that has big games and has games where he disappears, and that's just kind of the nature of how he plays. And I'm hoping that this year the big games are more often and not just against Washington schools and when Clay's in the building or whatever. He's definitely if he can take a step forward offensively, and he may even be better defensively this year than he was last year too, honestly. But he could be huge. So there's. We've pretty much run down almost every player at this point. Brandon Chatfield had a dunk.
Did we miss anybody? Yeah, we missed the walk-on forward.
The walk-on forward had a dunk against Eastern, so that's great.
That was nice.
Yeah, that was cool. He's a big dude, so it's nice to at least, if you're going to have the walk-on, he's a big dude, so he gets in the way.
Yeah, let's be honest. He didn't look terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Serviceable.
He may have maybe made Eastern feel bad for not giving him a scholarship.
Yeah. He maybe had an offer from Eastern. I don't know. I do know that he's bulked up quite a bit.
Yeah,
there's no doubt he was kind of a string bean when he came up, because he's the kid from Clarkston, right?
Yep.
So I know he was kind of a string bean when they recruited him, and he's up to 238. I mean, he's definitely put on some weight in the year that he's been in the program. So he was serviceable. He wasn't anything, making a bunch of impact, but he was okay. Like a lot of guys, a lot of walk-ons, when the athleticism is, slightly limited, you really see it in the rebounding rates. And he, in 2 games has, corralled 0 rebounds.
Yep.
None. So, And that's the part where, it's hard to get regular minutes if you're barely rebounding, unless you're Jeff Pollard and you're just like ridiculous at boxing people out, and then CJ Ellaby is swooping in to collect everything. So, but he did give them some decent minutes defensively. Obviously not a guy you want to roll with all the time, but
scored a couple buckets.
It's cool.
So,
yeah. Look, for all the talk about, Eastern only had, 8 guys. We played 2 walk-ons, pretty significant minutes in that game. We weren't playing with a full deck either, and so.
No, that's Fitzgerald Warren's the other walk-on, right?
Yep. Yeah. So, and he's a guy who's, probably going to play 15 minutes a game, for the rest of the year at the point. So, and Chatfield, when Jackson's back, hopefully that sort of eliminates him playing. Sorry if his parents are listening, but it's I think the team's probably better off if Jackson comes back and is playing those minutes instead. But we're playing walk-ons. We've got kind of a crazy loose rotation at the moment. A whole bunch of different guys are mixing and matching, and to get a win while you're kind of figuring some of that stuff out against a team that's veteran. It's not the same team that won the Big Sky last year, but they
can very well win the Big Sky.
They could do it this year for sure, and they definitely know what they're doing. And to have Davison really be under wraps. Now, some of that was him being in foul trouble, but to have Davison be under wraps for virtually the entire game, right until the end, is a feather in their cap to shut him down and make other guys beat them. Eastern's a team that's ranked higher in KenPom offensive projection than we are. And, we held them to 0.92 points per possession. So, lots and lots and lots to like, defensively. I felt like the defense, if we can just like hit on that for a sec, I felt like the defense was much more in line in the second game with what we got used to last year.
And probably starting in the second half of the Texas Southern game.
Yes, starting in the second half of the Texas Southern game, and then really kind of taking off against Eastern. Just very aggressive, in your face, hunting for turnovers, just kind of really all those things that we got used to last year. And then, I think this is going to be a fun thing to watch. When you look at these defensive rebounding percentages from the team, it's kind of wild how many guys are kind of rebounding out of their brains right now. So FA, we mentioned he's a really good rebounder. 27.6% defensive rebounding, and
that's
I know these numbers. Yeah, that's elite. I was gonna say I know these numbers probably don't mean a whole lot to most of the people listening, so we'll try to translate. But that's like elite. That's like Josh Hawkinson, Aaron Baines type defensive rebounding numbers, and then 13.3% offensive rebounding. That again is elite, and I don't know when
especially
the last
for time was. A philosophy like Smith's philosophy is not sending guys to the
right. We're not sending a bunch of guys to the glass. So, and I don't know when the last time was we had a guy at 13, and I doubt he'll stay there, but no. But that just kind of shows you what he's capable of. But when you look at the defensive rebounding numbers, Bonton 15%, Noah Williams 19%, Yakumovsky 17%, Ryan Rapp 20%, TJ Bamba 19%. That's like those are like there are a lot of forwards, like 4s and 5s who don't pull those kinds of numbers. Not necessarily the 15 from Isaac, but 19%, 20%. Those are really good defensive rebounding numbers, and these are guys who are all, 6'3", 6'5", 6'6". They're not small dudes, and
size matters.
With Ellaby gone, they're all everybody's going to have to do a job, and right now they are looking like a team that could be a dominant defensive rebounding team, and that's a key part of what they do.
And I think that right now they're sitting at projected 105 defensively overall in KenPom. I would not be surprised if they jumped into the top 100. Last year they finished 83. I could see them getting back up to there even with losing Ellaby. It was a good defensive player. If they can get back to that, to that level of defense, and even maybe even improve on it as you get Jackson back or get Jackson in the first place and things like that. So there's definitely the pieces, like a lot of the young pieces, like what we talked about in that second game compared to the first game. I will say the first game, don't poo-poo that defensive effort in the first game. Like, okay, Texas Southern is a SWAC team, and that is not a good conference. But Texas Southern is a lot better than most of the teams in that league.
Yeah.
And they have Michael Weathers, who was playing at Oklahoma State before he came to Texas Southern, and was a guy who was a high usage player at Oklahoma State. You can look up why he's at Texas Southern, but they're not without talent. They had some talented guys on their team, and for all intents and purposes, WSU completely shut them down. And it wasn't just that they were missing shots. They were making it was maybe in the first half, but the second half they were just kind of making it tough on them. Now, you can, on the other flip side, you can say the offense was just pitiful, but again, I think we've talked about that. Like, we probably just don't have a lot of great shooters at the moment. And hopefully that comes around and changes, particularly with the style, Smith being a guy that's going to want to shoot more threes. I think it would help if Bonton, I think absolutely Bonton could be a 40% 3-point shooter if he was a guy that wasn't pulling up off the dribble all the time,
Yeah.
So I think he could really be a guy, because when Bonton gets his feet set, that dude is money. When Bonton is catching and shooting, he is a very good shooter. I think he just looks worse because he's shooting so many tough shots. So if we can get, more minutes, guys, handling the ball, Bamba, Warren, Rap needs to hit a few shots. So dude, you got to make some damn shots. Like, you have to make a shot. Like,
yeah. Well, he did a little bit last year, so I think I definitely think there's more in there. I just don't know that he's, I don't know that he's a dead eye guy at some point.
Yeah, but yeah, I will say, like, you look at this team and they're not good right now. They're definitely not. And so you kind of have to look at the Eastern and Texas Southern games. Currently, Texas Southern is rated 223 and Eastern's 142. This is pretty much, given WSU's 138, this is pretty much what you would expect them to do. And this is only the start of the year, playing a ton of young players. So I would expect, just like last year, I would expect them to improve. And so I think they're going to get better. And so they could potentially end up being better than last year, where they finished like 126, I think. So I wouldn't be too discouraged if you're like, oh, we barely beat Eastern. We barely beat a SWAC team. One, Eastern's better than your average Big Sky team. SWAC, or better than most of your Big Sky teams. Like Texas, we played two teams that could very well be in the NCAA tournament later. Now, they're obviously winning small conferences, but whatever. They're not the bottom of the barrel. We're not playing the 350s of the world. We are going to later, but
and by the way, pretty clear that both teams are pretty well coached. Like you mentioned that with Leggins, and I'm totally spacing now.
I gotcha.
Coach of Texas,
Johnny Jones. Coach LSU.
Yes.
Like,
so. Two really good coaches, two teams that clearly knew what they were doing, had a sense of who they were, what they were trying to accomplish on offense and defense.
By the way, Texas Southern went and won at Wyoming tonight. Yeah.
So those are two. I don't know, man. Our fans. I guess some of this is due to expectations, right? You mentioned that at the top.
Well, I will say both these games, like, Ernie Kent would have lost both of these games. Yeah. Like, he absolutely would have. So. And I don't, that's not the bar. That's not the bar. It's not. It's absolutely not. But this team is loads better than where it was 2 years ago.
Potential.
And they're already probably almost as good as they were last year. And they lost CJ Ellaby. So give it some time. Like, they could end up being, like, solid. I don't expect them to be playing for the tournament. I don't expect any of that. But I do think, by the time, the meat of conference play rolls around, and we'll talk about who they have coming up in a second, but the meat of conference play rolls around, they could be looking pretty solid.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we're going to get kind of a nice little temperature check in these next 2 games, right? You got Oregon State coming in on Wednesday. Oregon State is currently ranked 110, so a little bit of a step up from Eastern, but certainly not, way out there.
Get your boss fights, man. You just get a bigger, tougher and tougher one every time.
Yep. And then you got Colorado, which is right now a top 50 team in KenPom. So
generally is a good team.
And we got to go play them in Boulder, which is always a really, really, really tough task.
Just remember, we did beat Colorado in the national championship game.
We did, and they're probably pissed. Yeah. So I guess we'll find out. But they've spent their first 2 games, stomping South Dakota and Kansas State,
which roughly the same quality of teams that we beat. But they've
stomped them. They've won their first one by 23. They won their second one by 18. And that was Kansas State, by the way, was on the road, which again, maybe playing on the road isn't quite as big of a deal now as it has been, but still at the same time, actually, Kansas State may have had fans.
Yeah, they may.
I'm not sure about that. They
I don't know about the indoor ones if they do that. But.
Yeah, they've definitely had outdoor fans at their games.
I would say
at any rate.
The Colorado game, I will never, ever expect WSU to win at Colorado.
No, me neither. Nope. So what I'm curious again
it's nice that they don't have to play at Utah 2 days before.
If we can beat Oregon State, then I'm feeling like, house money for Colorado. Because again, like you said, I'm the same way. I don't expect wins over Colorado or Utah on the road. We've just seen way, 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 way too many losses in those games. To expect anything more. But it is going to be kind of this nice little, temperature check of where the team's at. And then you've got Idaho, Portland State, Montana State, Prairie View A&M, and Northwestern State. And the highest ranked out of those teams is Montana State at 195. Idaho's in the 300s, Portland State's in the 300s, Prairie View A&M's in the 300s. Northwestern State is almost in the 300s. So those are all extremely winnable games. As you kind of try to get things straightened out heading into Pac-12 play, which opens up on New Year's Eve against Arizona State.
The main Pac-12 play. Yes. Obviously, these
that's
games
true. These are
count.
Games that count in the
These
series.
are Pac-12 games. These aren't just randomly. This was something that was decided before the pandemic. Like Pac-12, we knew that this game was happening on December 2nd last year. Like this has been a game that's been in stone for a long time. They were going to do these 2 to get it to a 20 games conference schedule, which is actually working out really well now. That you had that in place. Oregon State's going to be tougher. They still have Ethan Thompson. He's their guy now. There's that they're never great. They're solid under Tinkle. They're always kind of around the same range of caliber. So they're in that range of WSU can beat them, even if WSU's not up to par. They're definitely a lot more experienced team than WSU. They have a lot more juniors and seniors on the squad. They are 22nd actually in experience on KenPom. So how he does experience is actually how much the players have played at the Division I level. So it's not based on like if you're a junior or a senior or whatever.
Right.
So like if you're coming in as a junior transfer, you're 0 experience for KenPom. They're 22nd in experience. So they have a pretty experienced squad. WSU I think is in the mid they're like 190 or something. So that that's largely driven by Kuntz and Bonzon and stuff like that. They beat him last year. Klay Thompson's probably not going to be there.
Well, you never know.
He's got
time on his hands again.
Maybe he wants to do his rehab in Pullman.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. If we could just have Klay Thompson at every home game, I'm thinking we go undefeated at home. So Klay, come on up to Pullman.
Yeah, just come
do your rehab.
Yeah.
Come be our big cheerleader. You can have that floor pass. You can social distance. It's fine. You can bring Steph if he's free too. Yeah, I think that'd be cool. And Jaja, whatever. You can bring them all.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Andrew Bogut just retired. He's got tons of time on his hands.
Yeah, just get Bogut up there.
I'll bet Ryan Rapp would love to see him.
Oh, I'm sure Ryan Rapp loves Andrew Bogut. Yeah.
You know.
All right, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, Oregon State next game. It is on Wednesday, so probably tomorrow when you're listening to this, or it's already happened if you just listen to it late. And then Sunday we got the Coug doubleheader with
sweet Sunday football action.
We got 2 o'clock. We got 2 o'clock basketball game, Colorado, followed by 4:30 USC football game. So set your DVRs or whatever the hell you want to do. I don't know. Get your screens out, so you can watch your NFL and you can watch anyone else,
Yeah.
Figure it out. Let's make it happen. It's going to be a great day for Sunday. Save your drinking calories for Sunday. Be hungover for Monday.
There you go. It's always good advice.
All right, man. So at Pod versus Everyone is Jeff on Twitter. At the Craig Powers is me on Twitter. Podcast vs everyone at gmail.com for Gmail questions. I haven't checked it in a while. Sorry. I'm bad at this. I haven't checked. I had the last week off. I didn't check anything. So sorry. But also no one emailed us. I just checked. So thanks guys.
Thanks for the not emails.
Thanks for not emailing us. So do that. Any other things we should talk about? I don't know.
Nope, I think that's it, man.
All right.
We killed it.
We killed it. All right. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs, Craig. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.